Hello, I'm Chris Schnee, and I write science fiction and fantasy. I also play role-playing games, and I've done several solo campaigns that I like telling stories about. Here's one of them. I have previously played the game Ashes Without Number by Kevin Crawford, which is part of a larger family of games that includes worlds without number, stars, and so on, in various settings. And I've done a lot of stuff with these, and they have the same basic rule system for the most part, with some interesting variations by genre. I did Ashes Without Number already, and I showed you that with one character who had a very short career. Now I'm trying this again with a more powerful character and seeing how that goes. I tried rolling up some random stats and said, haha, no, I'm using the standard stat array. As before, this setting is in the far future, on Earth, after the collapse of an interstellar empire. My character is named Andre. He's one of the Jackrabbit people created by old Haywire Nanotech. This mainly means he's got bunny ears and some stat effects. He was a farmer by trade, but he saw enough fighting that he trained and got good at that. Also, he discovered he has some uncanny powers to move things with his mind. In game terms this time, I am bending the Ashes Without Number rule system a bit by making him a heroic tier character who is a warrior who also has the new Mentalist class. That part is geared to be weak compared to the Psychic class from Stars Without Number, but for mechanical reasons it's also less costly to use. Ashes normally uses a system called edges instead of classes, which makes for weaker characters, but these rule systems are meant to be compatible. So if you are following the compatibility between systems, I am kind of mixing Worlds Without Number with the Ashes system here. Also, we don't yet have a proper character sheet for this one, since the game isn't formally out yet. Andre is from the town of Tierras, located near the radioactive ruins of a city called Albuquerque. Population 822. It's a well-defended canyon pass with vulnerable farms to the east. There's little civic unity because many people are outsiders passing through to loot the ruins in the west, and the mayor treats the town like a business. So Andre has run-ins with the raiders on the east side, who are a bunch of goat mutants who attack farmers and travelers. Andre's in town one day, walking along the old atomic railway through the canyon. He gets approached by Espinoza, a reclusive tech specialist, who says he wants a favor. He says, there was supposed to be a caravan coming through, but it's late and I fear the worst. Andre says, I can tell you what I'll likely find if I check. It won't be pretty, though. I know, but there was something in that caravan worth more than usual. It's a valuable bit of old tech we could use for the farms. I doubt the raiders have any idea how to use it, judging from my contacts out east. If you could get it back, you'd be doing the town a real service. Andre asks what this stolen widget is. It's an advanced bit of manufacturing hardware, and it's not directly for the farms itself, but to be traded to the mining town of Picktown, out west. In return for getting that, Tierras will get some much-needed technical help they need. Espinoza describes this gadget. It's a portable, high-tech device. It's likely being treated as a shiny toy by the primitive raiders, but at least it's durable. So Andre now has a job about trying to retrieve this thing from the raiders. He thinks about how he's going to get this thing. He's unable to take on a whole tribe, nor is he stealthy. His best bet is to be an annoyance, moving quickly against small groups. So he takes up his backpack and sets out into the wilderness. Here's part of the overworld map, showing the town of Tierras in a mountain pass. Andre sets out to the east, into forested hills, passing through the outlying farmland of his home and his neighbors. There are a few streams to fill his canteen here. He's looking around, and unfortunately he's not much of a scout. Nothing much happens that first day. He has some success at tracking, giving him a general idea the tribals have been around here, but that's not immediately useful. He then gets into territory controlled by the goatfolk, so trouble is much more likely here. He makes another attempt to survey, and he finds something odd that I'll mention later. He finds there are signs of warriors having been here recently. They found a better place, and there are dangerous animals here. A significant battle happened here. The building itself is pristine. There's one occupant group, and I calculated there are 9 of them here. They've been here at least overnight. They have a hesitant attitude, led by a glib manipulator. They incurred the wrath of a dire enemy, and they are currently out here scouting for some reason. All that I got from some random tables. The building that Andre finds is 2 stories high, imposing, made of stone, with shattered windows and mostly intact heavy double doors. Andre listens in and hears voices inside. They speak with the bleating tones of goatfolk. They sound tense, arguing worriedly about something. Andre suspects that this group is what he's after, but it sounds like there are a bunch of these guys, and he doesn't want to run in with a sword in his hand and try to fight them all. So what he does is walk around the building, looking for other doors. Turns out there is a back door. Andre figures that somebody is bound to walk out before long. He hides nearby to wait, and soon one of the goatfolk steps out, unsuspecting. Andre slips behind the guy with a bowie knife to his target's throat and his other hand on the goat's muzzle. Andre whispers, "Quiet or else. Did you take a high-tech widget from a caravan the other day? That's all I'm after." And he gets a fairly positive reaction to this. I take that as a morale check of sorts, and another card tells me that yes, this group definitely has this device. The man fails a morale check, and the odds say that he is from the group that has the widget. So he talks, submitting to Andre's threats. "What's that piece of junk anyway?" Andre says, "I barely know, but Tieris wants it back. Hand it over, and I'm done here." Andre does a terrible job trying to make a persuasion roll. The goat grumbles and spits a quiet curse. "You're nothing. If you hurt me, you're dead. And if you let me go, you're also dead." Andre says, "Maybe, but I'm good at running, and you're not so good at coming back from the dead." Even so, Andre is unconvincing enough that the situation worsens. The goat bangs on the door before Andre can stop him. As a result, a second one steps outside to investigate the noise. So I have an encounter here. I have to figure out how this starts. And based on some random cards, I say, a goat lady arrives, asking, "You alright?" Andre rushes to drag his hostage over to the door and pin him there before she can react, the second one. He says, "Give me the tech widget you stole." She gasps, about to shout for help, but Andre has a hostage. She says to the man, "Just crush him. He's little." The hostage is in fact taller and stronger than Andre, but Andre has a big knife to his neck. He murmurs, "Go around front." Andre says, "Don't move." "Then what's your next move, bunny?" Andre has to change the threat. "Look, you tin can eater, I don't want to cut your throat, but we need that widget back. Whatever else you took, I don't care about today. Do you people need first aid or some tool fixing? I can trade you for that. That's all I need." The goat says, "Dash, did you think you could deal with the tunnels? This pipsqueak? Maybe send him in." Andre says, "I'm waiting for an explanation." The lady tells him, "There's a hidden passage under here. Gotta be something good that'll put us back in Pearson's good graces. Our chief, I mean." Andre says, "And you want somebody to root around in there?" "If it'll get you to let Dash go, sure." Andre still isn't in a great position. "I don't know what you think of oaths and honor. I'll let you go if you swear to talk in peace." Because the best alternative here is Andre cutting a man's throat and killing the woman with them and then probably fighting the rest of the tribe, I say the goatfolk agree to this situation. Andre backs off, rapidly switching gear to his sword and shield. He's good at that kind of thing. The man called Dash looks ready to fight him, but just glares with his weird sideways pupils. So Andre has been talked into a tough situation. He's supposed to explore some tunnels under this building. The goatfolk would like him to be an expendable guy, but they're also worried he'll pocket anything valuable. So probably one of the goatfolk goes in with him, curious about what's down there. Cards tell me yes. The building interior is stone with some ruined benches inside, occupied by a small tribe of the goat people staring at this weird bunny-eared guy who's come in. So I rolled up information about what Andre is facing, a group of these 9 guys who've gotten on the bad side of a tribal chief, and they're currently scouting. Now, as seen in my previous video about Ashes Without Number, the normal way of handling an encounter site is to pick a real type of building and use a plausible, simple floor plan. Here I'm dealing with a weird underground tunnel network that I rolled up, so I'm applying something that's more of a fantasy dungeon crawl type structure to figure out the shape of this. Inside the building, there is a hidden hatch on the floor, leading to an underground metallic room. 2 tunnels branch off from here. Half the reason for Andre needing company is so that the goat guy can hold a torch. It's dark, and something's moving down here. What? A card draw mentions skulls, moaning, and a greasy scent. Unfortunately, that suggests some kind of zombie. It could be some other kind of mutant too, but I'll go with this option. A creature lurches up from the floor, seemingly dead, but moving to attack. The good news is that these things have no real defense, and Andre slashes it to death easily. The bad news is that there is never just one zombie. Andre looks to his companion, the guy apparently named Dash, and says, "You really want to know what else is down here?" The goatman bleats uneasily, but ushers Andre onward. To the right is a collection of human remains. Something terrible must have happened down here. How old? Looks years old, but still post-apocalypse. Andre pokes them for signs of also being zombies. Do they look like they've been gnawed on? Yeah, there's not a lot of meat left on the bones. Anything interesting on them? Also yes. Looks like there are some dirty but mostly intact t-shirts and a good pair of gloves. The way out from here leads north. There's a room containing ruined ancient personal items. Like smashed electronics and wallets of now useless money. Andre searches, though, and he finds something more. There's some more clothing in good condition here. How much? I got 2 business suits or dresses, 1 cultural or religious outfit, sturdy boots, and a costume. A costume of what? Well, the cards say a bestial roar. Okay, so down in the tunnels we have a pair of nice suits, some kind of religious outfit Andre doesn't recognize, a good set of boots, and a animal costume like a coyote. Weird, man. Who wears this kind of thing? Andre thinks back to the nature of this building, and here I'll reveal what I randomly rolled up for the site. It's a memorably interesting combination, okay, and I repeatedly rolled clothing for the contents. Anyway, moving on, Andre and his companion Dash move to the unexplored hallway. They walk in, and Dash's torch goes out, plunging them into darkness. Andre fears an ambush. The goat man is equally surprised, though. They both back off down the tunnel and whisper, "Gas?" Andre says, "Maybe, but I want to know what's in there if nobody's looted it." They go back up for fresh air and to retrieve the clothing and bring that up. The stuff is not terribly useful to the goat tribe, especially the shoes, but maybe they can trade it or recycle the cloth or something. Now they want to investigate that other room. That means relighting their torch and being more careful to get a good look at a distance. Unfortunately, that also means Andre being sent ahead as the canary. He presses on with a rope tied around his waist on the theory that his companion will yank him back if necessary. He's not happy about this deal, but he moves on. What does the torchlight show? This is a dead end, and I interpret a card draw as follows. There's a big room that was a hidden transport station. It caved in. A truck is crushed under rubble. Whoever was riding this thing has been reanimated, creating a cluster of zombies now waking up to fight. Good news, Andre's able to breathe here now. Bad news, zombies, a bunch of them. How many? Looks like 6. 3 of them are slow shamblers, and the others seem quick and especially hungry. Andre falls back to bottle them up. He wins initiative. He gets to use one of his mentalist abilities, a blast of shrapnel that acts like a shotgun. He fires wildly into the room down a hallway and pings everything in it except the zombies. Wow. As a heroic character, though, he's able to take a free swipe on one of the weaklings and kills it. 2 of the faster ones are able to swarm in on him to attack. They both hit without doing a ton of damage. "Back up," shouts Andre. He slashes the fast leaper in front of him for what would be a miss, but as a warrior type, he manages to kill the weakest of those 3. He also cuts deeply into a rotten walker, downing it, making a terrible scent. Dash is eager to get away down the hall, if not to help directly. As the faster zombies close in, one of them batters Andre's shield away, and the other slashes with its clawed nails for a weak hit. Andre thinks he can handle this. He slashes enough to badly wound one of these powerful leapers. They're relentless, though, chomping on his arm. "A little help," says Andre, trying to get Dash to participate. Dash is rallied enough to thrust his torch at a leaper, doing a few points of fire damage to it. Andre tries to fight through the pain. He lands a solid hit, but for poor damage, and slashes again, while Dash successfully kills off a zombie with his torch. The remaining 2 swarm at Andre, but are unable to hurt him. His shield helps protect him. The pair destroy the last of the undead quickly. They stand wide-eyed in a dark tunnel with burning corpses and sizzling torch for light. They're hardly able to believe what just happened. Dash says, "I heard that when the world exploded, there were tiny machines that mutated people. Walking dead people, though? That's new to me." Both their species are the products of an old nanite system gone haywire, that they don't know the details of this. Dash has, "What'd you do at the start? Throw rocks at him?" Dash gets a chance to notice the fact that Andre did something supernatural, his mentalist power. I'll make a tough roll for the guy to notice, since it was dark, but he passes. Must be those slit pupils. "I thought it'd help," Andre said. He's not eager to explain the psi powers. Dash makes a connection, though. "You're one of those mind people, aren't you? You threw stuff with your brain." Andre winces. People like that don't have a good reputation in this world. He says, "Do you have a problem with that? I don't plan to use it on you so long as we get today's problem resolved." This is a bit of a bluff, too, since he's out of energy at the moment. Dash gets a reaction roll, and Andre gets a chance to improve it with a talk skill. Yeah, he's not very good at talking, but it's a very neutral reaction as a result. Dash shakes his head, saying it helps explain how Pipsqueak's alive out here anyway. Now, is anything good in these ruins? The air is now circulated enough that they can get a light into that final area. It looks like that truck was carrying some medical gear and documents. It was traveling through this hidden tunnel that then collapsed. No clear explanation for the story here, but there's some technological loot with a connection to medicine. Looking at the rulebook's ideas, I think he finds 2 interesting gadgets. A walker exoharness, which is a strap-on exoskeleton that helps the wearer move despite paralysis or even unconsciousness, and a dock band, a wrist strap that displays a readout of the wearer's health status, good for diagnosis. These trinkets are interesting enough to the tribe that between that and the clothing, they feel they got something worth showing to their larger tribe's boss. That's a leader named Pearson, the chief puppeteer of their group. So this group here has the old tech widget that was stolen from Tierras. Due to the deal that Andre made, they're willing to trade at this point, and they will let that happen without a fight. Andre still isn't sure what the stolen device really is, but he's reluctant to give away everything he found just to get that. The goatfolk let him have a nice pair of boots from the stash anyway. It's not like they can use it. They're numerous and armed enough that he doesn't want to press his luck here. The result is that Andre leaves their camp the next morning without much to show for it, but he did get the widget he was looking for. He sets out through the wilderness again, using the western mountains for guidance. And he does a decent job of that. Probably would have failed if not for the big obvious mountain landmark. He makes it back to Tierras and speaks with Espinoza, the technologist who is so well equipped that he wears double wristwatches. Espinoza is pleased that Andre has succeeded. Now this thing is back, we can trade it to the men from Picton, and they'll help with our farms. Andre knows about the town's ongoing farming problems. It's not just that the area is dry and sloped, but that it's not well defended. Tierras has good fortifications, but many of the fields are out of their range. That leaves the food supply vulnerable to random monsters and the goatfolk. Andre would like to help the town deal with its problems through improving the security. So here I will get into the social adventure side of the rules. It's not all combat. This is a harsh social environment where the people need to hang together. This town is not particularly good at that, since people tend to treat it as a scavenging hub and not as a place they're loyal to. I rolled up a random social problem, and got the idea that a leader is supporting somebody as an underling to try to solve a problem and had that person be in charge of it. I rolled that twice in such a way that I said that there are two authority figures trying to do this for rival plans. There are a few known NPCs in this town already. Mayor Bob Crenshaw is a rich supply merchant who became mayor by default, and he's the one treating the town like a personal business. He supports Padre O'Malley, a priest who is looking to establish a fortified chapel in the ruins of Albuquerque as an explorer base. Espinoza is on the other side of this. He wants to focus on the east side and the farms and their defense. He's also got the support of a guy called Bill the Bomber, who has a worrying interest in explosives. What's this all about? We have two important people in town who are looking to address Tierras' problems and supporting different methods. Mayor Crenshaw wants to direct more of the town's attention to scavenging in Albuquerque, westward, and backing the priest for that. But Espinoza, the technical guy, thinks the town is looking in the wrong direction and should focus eastward. Espinoza draws Andre into the problem a few days after he gets back. He says, if we're ever going to secure the food supply, we need to organize better defenses in the east, but the mayor is trying to divert our resources westward. Now, Andre isn't a great guy to handle social problems. He doesn't got the skills or the stats for it. What he tries first is to go directly to Padre O'Malley, the man backing this westward movement. O'Malley's initial reaction is a 10, a very favorable one. He seems to appreciate Andre's work for the town, or maybe just likes the rabbit ears. So here I am trying a couple of little online tools, which I'll give a link to, for handling an influence situation in a single-player game. It seems to work out pretty well for me. O'Malley's first move is to ask Andre if he needs help. That surprises Andre, who says yes and explains the problem. He tries to be charming, focusing on wanting to be part of a thriving town that can be a better community. Andre isn't very persuasive at this, though. The priest insists we can only really grow through reclaiming the ruins. Andre then focuses on a different tack, improving the man's trust in him. It's fine to do that, but why not focus first on the ruins that will also improve our immediate security? He talks about the trip he just made. In fact, I found a kind of religious center that was also sturdy enough to reclaim as a base. So here he rolled very well, and I give him a bonus for that specific argument. This is a good success, and O'Malley's interested in that, but he's still enamored of going back into the big city ruins to the west. Andre hammers the point of combining security with ruin combing, saying that there must have been another facility the secret tunnel connected to. Then there's the infamous ranch called the Running A, which has not been plundered much. And since the goatfolk need to be dealt with one way or another, why not use the opportunity to preach at them? The result is a pretty good success here. O'Malley beats around the bush about this topic, ultimately saying, if I were to minister to the goatfolk, how would I go about it? He considers this, and he says, from a position of strength, I think. If we can press eastward, they'll have less of an option to live by stealing from us. Then they'll have more need to listen to you and see a better way to live. Andre's answer isn't necessarily the best answer, but it's what he can come up with on the spur of the moment, and O'Malley's been persuaded successfully to put off his dreams of going west. As a result, the mayor has less support for that, and the town will focus, after all, on the east. That's kind of a victory. There are consequences, though. The town is directing its attention towards security in the eastern farm area, and this brings it into conflict with the goatfolk raiders. Now I am bringing in the faction conflict system. The raiders are a faction big enough to cause serious problems for Tierras, so I'll give them a similar power level to the town. Stat block that I made up for the raiders. They've got a resource called interest, which is good for interfering in Tierras. It's due to them knowing the land well and being able to hit and run. The town has some interest in the goatfolk tribe as well, but is not as powerful in that respect. They both have a resource called Dominion, which is currently at 0. On the faction turn, initiative says that Tierras acts first. The level of interest that the goatfolk have in them is a major problem because it's going to lead to interference against anything major they try to do. The town focuses its attention on trying to purge some of that through scouting and understanding exactly where these thieves hide and how to catch them. And that works pretty badly. The raiders are too mobile to pin down. The town devotes effort to mustering a better set of combat parties for future work, using an action to build up Dominion. And that is also not very successful. The goat tribe gets to act next. They know that Tierras is getting serious about ending the attacks on them. They make an effort to prepare by bribing some of the townspeople who have no real loyalty to the place, so they're using that aspect of the town against it. There's a stalemate here, though, as they find they're unable to make real inroads to build up yet more influence. Internally, they try to prepare for war by healing some of the rifts between their clans. However, Tierras is clever about this, spending a point of their interest to steal the Dominion away they would gain. What this means in the universe is the town used the intel that it's been gathering to sow yet more dissent among the clans and learn more about how to deal with them. So the town is beginning to get an edge here. The town is better prepared. All this takes about a month. The town and the tribe are maneuvering for a possible war. Neither of them is well equipped yet for a large-scale conflict, but they're working on it. The town's failure to accomplish much leads to some infighting, but the continued raider problems help to strengthen the argument that this problem needs to be dealt with at last. One other wrinkle here is the effect of Andre's mission. Because he retrieved that widget, someone from the town of Picton to the west has come here and brought them tech know-how. Because hero actions override this faction system, I'll count the mission as a gain of Dominion points that could be used later. So, the two groups are now facing off, expecting war. The town is building up resources, but the tribesmen have the hidden ace of better intel and bushcraft. Mayor is going to call on Andre to somehow tilt the situation in the town's favor, and that means another adventure. The stage is set. But that is another story. End of session. What did I make of this game? In contrast to my first brush with Ashes Without Number, I played a more powerful character, better able to survive. Instead of exploring a ruin that was directly based on a crumbled building, I ended up using the fantasy rules to generate a dungeon area without obvious purpose. Seems to hint at this being where secretive medical stuff went awry and left zombies. It's pretty random. After doing the dungeon crawl, I wanted to try out a social challenge, but wasn't sure how to handle that as a solo player. So I found some ideas that others had written about how to do that, and made skill checks and wrote out how the argument went. Part of what interested me there was trying to think of what the actual arguments would be that might persuade this guy. It was fun. Then I wanted to try working with the Ashes faction system. This game features 2 of them. One is the simple system shown here, where each group has a few resources that it uses to build and attack. It's meant to create adventure contexts. In this case, the 2 groups mostly flailed uselessly at each other, but it set up the idea that the town is close to being ready for a real change, but needs to stop the enemy from interfering with the plan. That's where my hero would come in, overriding the faction play. The rulebook's going to have a free edition as usual, but the paid edition also includes a more complex optional system for hub settlement that's the focus of the campaign. That is going to involve things like gathering resources and building specific facilities in the town. If you don't like either of those systems, both the Stars and Worlds games include a complex kind of wargame system where you are moving around teams of saboteurs and other agents. I never use those myself, but that could be interesting if you want a more complex system. The author also wrote a specialized version of that called The Setting interests me largely because I'm using the specific post-apocalypse Wild West given in the book, and I know how it ties in with the other books in this series. It also can be used with the game's first edition, which is oddly called Other Dust. The rules here are also meant to replicate other settings, such as a zombie apocalypse, a more magically flavored ruin, or Fallout, blatantly Fallout. For the default setting, we get several named settlements and ruins like Tierras, tied together with a crazy backstory. I've mixed and matched rules somewhat by using elements from the fantasy rule system. That doesn't break the system at all. You just have to decide what parts you want to mix and match and which part should be the main basis for your game. Ashes, for instance, has rules about traumatic injuries and even mental trauma, so if you want to have that, you can include it in your game, but you don't have to. Similarly, I use the Mentalist class for this character, which is like a weaker version of Stars Without Number Psychic class, so that's another option, and the deluxe book has a couple of additional options beyond that. Here, I have erred on the side of having a too powerful character, but again, Ashes by default uses a relatively weak character, and that's even compared to the Cities Without Number system, which has cyberware in it. But there are various options for having different levels of power for your character, depending on what appeals to you. Overall, I had fun with this, trying a couple of different systems within the larger rule system, and doing something that had a meaningful impact on the setting. It wasn't just an adventure, a dungeon crawl. I could see how it was affecting this town and its relationship with this raider gang. Also, certainly was more successful than the guy who died in the first session. If you're interested in this family of games, there are free editions of most of them, along with expanded content in the paid editions. Playing through this adventure, I got so distracted that I actually made a small computer game based on it. I will probably do some kind of development journal video to talk about that project. That's its own story. If you like my storytelling in general, I've written a ton of books. I have them on Amazon. You can find them there, and some of them have audio editions with actual pro voice actors, better than my voice. At the moment, I am not sure how many more of these I'm going to get to do, but I will try to do at least one more of the Wolves of God game, which is a campaign set in medieval England. I'm Chris Schnee. Thanks for listening.